Welcome back to another edition of the Cover One Podcast, episode 14. I'm your host, Kevin Massare, and you can find me at Kevin Massare, Massare, and you can follow our main account at Cover One Bills. I'm here today with special guest Jason Shannon, actually free agent Jason Shannon, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm Jason, by the way. I've done quite a few projects with Kevin in the past, and with some other, Bill's internet media people that you would know. Not going to give any free shout outs to anybody but Cover One. Kevin can do that if he wants. But I'm a lifelong Bills fan, since very early 90s. And I love this team. I love talking about it. I'm looking forward to talking about it with Kevin today.
And great. And as always, we like to shout out to Beyond the Blade, our Sabres podcast, and a special shout out to Numb Bills Fan for having us on last week, and a couple other podcasts that we'll be having a couple of our members on there as well. Going into the Bills, I mean, they had a really good free agency, in my opinion, as we start to transition now into draft time and pro days, and lots of news coming out about 40 times and draft boards and mock drafts, wrapping up free agency. I thought the Bills did a really good job filling a bunch of depth needs. They still left a couple of glaring holes, and I really think filling in with Andre Holmes helps us fill in a third receiver role. Putting in Philly Brown as well helps us with a third, fourth receiver role, and really leaves a glaring hole at still number 2 receiver as well as cornerback. And so, Jason, what do you think about our free agency thus far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it exceeded my expectations by a lot. I know there were a lot of dire stories about where the cap was, and it wasn't very good. We were very low in the league on available money, especially for where our talent is. And then you would tell me, I expected Gilmore to be priced out. Woods got even more money than I thought, but I thought he was going to get a pretty decent contract for what he had contributed. And I liked him as a player, but not like a 5-year, $39 million player.
That's too much.
So I kind of thought those guys would be gone, but then you tell me, even though they weren't great or hurt last year, we lose both starting safeties. We were down Roby. Some of these were necessary cuts, some weren't, but that really put us in a spot where, we had holes everywhere. And I think with the available money and what we had done to go and get 2 starting safeties immediately, depending on where Hyde plays, I actually think the receiver group, I had seen on Twitter, so it's definitely true, but I hadn't looked it up yet. But apparently Goodwin signed for the same amount of money that the 3 guys we got at receiver.
Yeah, that's what Buffalo Rumblings ran something on that the other day.
So I'm pretty sure it's close if it's not completely true. But I really like Holmes as a player, just in terms of an athlete. And, you always like to give those guys a chance. And even a guy like he's better than Justin Hunter, but, a guy like Justin Hunter who you put into situations, that guy can go make plays when you want him to. And then Philly Brown, he had that huge NFC Championship game. If you talk to Carolina fans, a lot of them will tell you that, he was their most consistent receiver the last couple of years, mostly because they had to watch Ted Ginn drop passes, but
Benjamin get hurt 2 years ago.
Benjamin get hurt 2 years in a row. But for the amount of money that they signed for, I think that really gives them the chance to fill, possibly 3 through 5 or pretty close to it. When we start talking about the draft, receivers still going to be super high on my list.
Yeah.
And then the double fullback move too. I don't really think Mike Tolbert. He might play as a fullback, but I think he's a third running back to go and bang behind our 2 running backs. I think we had 2 similar running backs and a bad running back were our 3.
Yep.
Because Jonathan Williams really hadn't done anything yet. And I think if we could do 2 similar running backs and like a decent one that can get the short yards and, go bust up some stuff. And he's already talking. He loves contact, and anything you see on the field definitely reflects that. And then in Patrick DeMarco, by all accounts, is a great blocking fullback. And if we're going to use that and we're going to continue to play in a similar way offensively, which I think Dennison will probably do.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
From all indications, I think those were 2 really good signings. And I just think philosophically, I think to go and get, I think we've officially signed 13 guys. You go get 10 plus guys for the costs they had. I just think that's way better than splashing on one. You sign Gilmore and suddenly 9 of those guys are gone, and Gilmore played like crap half the year.
Yeah, he did, and once again he's still a big loss for us. And that's definitely another need for us that we're going to obviously talk about.
No doubt.
At the cornerback position. You have Seymour and you have your Darby, and that to me is okay. They just signed Leonard Johnson too, so he is definitely going to be your fourth corner special teams guy, and I guarantee you he'll get some snaps this year. He comes from defense.
McDermott either knows that he likes some, or he doesn't.
Right? Why would you sign someone?
I don't think he's Doug Marrone, who traded for Syracuse Mike Williams after cutting him from Syracuse. I think if he signs a guy,
right,
it's because he liked having him on the team. He actually had some really good, at least counting stats as far as pass breakups. I think he has 5 interceptions and like 2 for touchdowns in his career. So
absolutely, and I think he actually is a really good ad there. And I think that you saw whether Doug Whaley went out and tried to find similar things to what they did last year with your Lorenzo Alexanders and your Zach Browns, and trying to fill needs that way. I think they did the same thing this year, and I would not be surprised if 1 or 2 of these guys we've mentioned today we're talking about needing to resign because of how well they played this season. And I think you'll definitely see that, whether it's at the receiver position or whether it's Leonard Johnson, or someone's going to play well enough that we're like, we need to resign that guy.
I don't like relying my whole team on that. You obviously still have to draft well, but there's a lot of 27 and 20-year-old guys that can still play. They don't just suddenly become bad. They usually get priced out of the league because they have to go on a veteran contract.
Right.
People want to sign their draft picks. But these guys can still play. And if there were 40 teams in the league, I think the league would be just as talented.
Yeah, absolutely.
These guys got to go become mailmen because there's only 53 roster
and they
slots.
didn't get the right opportunity.
But I think taking a shot on some of these guys with what happened with Lorenzo last year, and then you get guys like Cole Anderson that like don't really work out, or Sterling Moore or whatever. But for what you paid, and you don't even have to pay those guys when they get cut. And
you get a salary cap benefit for a veteran minimum too. So those guys can be a little bit more pricey than undrafted free agents, and even late round picks.
Mm-hmm.
But you could argue that some of these guys, what you're going to get with a little bit more, and that if you're spending a little bit more money, you could absolutely hit the jackpot just as easily as you can with an undrafted free agent. So
sure,
there are benefits to this model that we seem to be going with here in the last couple of years, with signing vet minimum guys and needing to hit. I mean, and you need to hit 90 players. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around that. I mean, you need to get to the number.
We don't
have 40 undrafted free agents.
We do not have 30 draft picks this year.
Yeah,
we have 6.
Nor would I argue I don't want that many undrafted free agents. I want a lot. Some of those Rex Ryan teams, I remember us bringing in like 7 or like 8, something really low. And it was almost like, that's not enough to see some of these talented guys out there that aren't getting drafted in record years of juniors.
Sure.
And then, not that I want 30 guys, but having like 20 undrafted free agents to me is not a problem.
No.
And it leads me to believe that the Bills have put themselves in position to at least address 3 major needs with their first 3 picks in the top 75. I think you could see a lot of these guys get a lot of playing time, and they haven't drafted particularly well before 2013. It's well documented by pretty much every blog or media source how poor we drafted in 13, 12, 11, 10, and earlier.
15.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
I mean, we just don't know yet, but.
Right. And what I can argue is that at least from 14 to 16 currently, most of our players are on the team still, which is still actually a step in the right direction for some of our years.
I meant 16, by the way, when I made that joke. I was just talking about the fact that half that draft class still hasn't played for our team yet.
That's true, and I'm sure some are writing off.
By the way, really could be a nice surprise. Reggie Ragland is on the team. It was
I don't know why everyone just thinks he can't play in the 4-3 or something. Like they're just like, oh, he's hurt and can't play in the 4-3. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't.
After looking amazing in like 7 days of training camp, like all of a sudden, I guess he could maybe not be good at football anymore. But to me, I think he's got a role on this team, and it's going to be most likely a strong side linebacker.
Yeah, that's where I would put him.
So to me, you have Zach Brown, who was in for a visit yesterday and looking really weird guy, really weird free agency path, but looking more and more like he probably won't sign here. And if he doesn't, I still think you see us make a linebacking move. There's still some free agents out there that could come in. Like Zach Brown was signed May 1st, I believe, of last year. So that should be an example of there being free agents like Perry Riley and others that are still out there, especially if Zach Brown goes and signs one of those teams that were looking at the free agents. I do think you see a linebacker veteran move there. And McDermott's on record saying that he needs to get creative with his linebacking core and play to his strengths. I don't think that goes out and means to draft Reuben Foster in the first round.
I really don't want to. And I think he's a good player, and I think Leonard Fournette is a good player too.
Right.
And
I kind of feel
think there's guys that aren't particularly good fits for the team, or we just don't need or are good values at that high. And
people knock us for always drafting D-backs, and sometimes, now I've been seeing some people mention like, oh, we've taken all these wide receivers. A, we've taken them all in the late round, so let's stop that. And B, we did trade 2 picks for Sammy Watkins. We get it. It's just a different way to say that. Like, it's still one player.
By the way, Cameron Irving's doing really well in the league.
It's still now. One player. It's Sammy Watkins. That's who we traded an extra first for in a bad draft class, no matter how you cut it up. It was like Landon Collins and Ronald Darby were like the only top 50 picks after our pick that were any good. So it is –
Sex receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what.
Well, it's a 2014 year.
Yeah.
You're saying, yeah. The bigger argument to me isn't trading away the extra first.
Right.
It's that you could have
Sammy Watkins, but you don't. He's just as good as those guys.
He is, and like a lot of people are like, oh well, Mike Evans. I'm like, well, 100% Mike Evans wasn't there because he got picked before our pick, so he's out. So yeah, if you like, there's a couple of guys there like Brandon Cooks. If you like.
Odell
Beckham's a big one that jumps out, and I was a big Odell Beckham fan in the time. And when rumors started to come out that he could be the pick at our pick, I remember people flipping out. So I just always go back to some of those initial comments when people were upset about staying and taking Odell Beckham.
I wouldn't have been super happy about it.
Yeah,
he wasn't my favorite receiver in the draft. I thought he was the second best LSU receiver in that draft, and Jarvis Landry's been pretty good,
and he's good too. So there's a couple of guys there that. You even got like marginal guys like Jordan Matthews. You have a bunch of those players that ended up coming and being pretty good football players.
It's tough to go and grab the best guy in a good class because your chances of being right on the best guy being the best it's low.
It's low. You guaranteed yourself one of them, and you got the one you thought was the best.
And I think they still have him.
And I think that he's going to be a player you start to see that from as the years go on, and had an unfortunate year last year and missed 2 games prior to that. So I think that it was a great move. We did use an extra asset to get him, but it hasn't been like we drafted a first round receiver for 10 straight years. It happened to be, we took one high and traded a pick to do so. So I guess you can interpret that however you want. We took Robert Woods, who by all accounts to me worked out. He just got $40 million. So yeah, he's a good player. We actually couldn't afford to re-sign him. It wasn't like an issue of him not being good and we cut him. Like
decent second receivers get paid a lot of money.
It wasn't like Justin Hunter who got cut from 4 games.
The moment I knew Robert Woods was gone was last year when Marvin Jones signed.
I don't know why people didn't make that connection with Marvin Jones and
Mohamed Sanu did it too. But the day Marvin Jones, I saw his contract for the Lions, I said, all right, well, we're gonna have to find a new second receiver. And it's
just we don't have the cap space. And I thought I read something that Los Angeles is spending the most amount of money on receiver in the league to have Woods and Tavon Austin.
That's
like that team. There you go. There you go. So back to me thinking that, and this really segues into me thinking that our top pick needs to go to a receiver. Because I was pushing that last year and it showed. I know there's a lot of rhetoric. Oh, we don't throw the ball. Oh, blah, blah, blah. We lost 108 targets. It might even be more than that from the receivers we lost. I guess you can say Andre Holmes can take some of those. You can say Philly Brown takes a few of those. And receiver to me can be a tight end. If it's OJ Howard and we determine that that's the best way to win a football game, I am completely for that move, taking OJ Howard. And that's just that. I really need to get in front of a receiver. I've spent a lot of time watching Corey Davis. He's great. He runs a phenomenal route. He gets open. He high points the ball. He has phenomenal hands. He's just a football player. He's a really good receiver. And then you get into your Mike Williams and John Rosses, and you can keep going down the list if you prefer. I know lots of people are high on Zay Jones and making that wide receivers coach connection. And I think he's even risen up to the top half of the second round by most accounts. Some people got angry at me for saying he was a second-round pick. But
yeah, I've now seen mocks. Kuiper, who's as mainstream as it gets, had Zay Jones at 31, I think.
Wow.
So
yeah, he's. I saw Scout Sync has him up to like personal rank up to like 32 or 33.
Yeah, I think he's a really talented guy, and I like him a lot more than some of the other guys in the second.
Similar to the Leonard Johnson thing with McDermott, you would think that our wide receivers coach would absolutely know what Zay Jones can bring you and should be lobbying for him if that's the case. But a lot of times, just like Doug Marrone, it doesn't always happen just because you coached him.
Well, yeah, no, I think you got a pretty good indicator. However many years ago, when Ryan Nassib went, when we passed on Ryan Nassib
like four times, could have been a backup, and we still didn't want him. He was a value pick at that point, and we still didn't want him. So
that tells you what we thought about him.
Coaching can be like, Zay Jones is not going to put it together. I don't know this, but he could be saying, I don't know, he doesn't have the work ethic, he doesn't have this or that, or whatever it is that he might know, and be like, this is a risky pick. Or maybe he is doing the opposite, saying if he's on the board even near our second round pick, we need to make a move to get him. But
which, by the way, I think everybody's saying Zay Jones is like a really, really good character guy.
Yeah, so
I think he's got NFL dad or somebody. So all the character stuff's going to come in his favor, and I think not only with the good Senior Bowl that he had,
right. He's only been better.
I think the Senior Bowl combine. He also ran really a lot faster than people thought. But he's probably gotten interviewed 50 times since then, and I think that stuff only helps you. So when you see a guy mysteriously rise like that, there usually is a reason.
Yeah, and it's similar to your Keanu Neals or your guys from last year that just rose from second and third round all the way up to first. And a lot of people would say that's not even rising. That's just you guys. That's just you finding out that he's actually a first round pick. So
a lot of it. Especially with all the juniors that come out, a lot of people don't watch the juniors. People aren't going to rank guys high until they see them. Obscure schools, whatever. I think it is more of the market correcting itself than people, trying to be crazy or, suddenly he's got all of this new film. People just have to watch the film.
Right. Absolutely.
Sometimes it takes a while to get there. And Corey Davis hasn't been a prospect for 3 years. People finally got around to him. He was putting up big numbers, and people saw, wow, this guy's real.
Played in major bowls, and he's a real guy. He played against real competition, tore up everybody, no matter if it was in the MAC, which isn't a bad football conference, all the way to playing really well in his BCS game. So, they were ranked, they were undefeated until losing to Wisconsin by barely at the end. So, he's a solid player that I just think you really need to consider at 10. Any shocker picks that you could see at 10th overall? Anything that that was more a Buddy Nix thing, I think, but was there anything that you could see? Doug Whaley's usually pretty straightforward, or Sean McDermott, as some think, are now going to be drafting for us. Is there?
Yeah, first off, as far as receiver goes, it was before the combine, somewhere late in the season. I thought John Ross was the most awesome receiver I had watched play college football all year.
Right.
And then he ran that, and it's like, somebody is going to take him too high. I actually don't advise it, because if you have two different bad knees, that's the only two knees you have. I get worried about that, and I'm starting to get worried about, I'd love to just take a first round pick with no health problems and no character issues. I'd love to just do that for a year, just like see how that goes, make sure that our guys are at least decent. They play the first year, they get some development that way. So that, I honestly think he's he's obviously much smaller than Davis and Williams, but I think he's as good of a receiver and such a dynamic guy after the catch.
He torched people in college. He's not just a speedster. He's like,
I think he's like much. Marquise Goodwin isn't even in the same universe as him.
No.
But like a lot of the speed guys that have gotten drafted in the first round for speed, it's much more of a complete receiver than that.
Right. And a lot of people always, Bills fast receivers. We have TJ Graham and we had Marquise Goodwin. Why do we want that?
Those guys weren't good receivers.
No.
And I know that we drafted them. They were bad draft picks, and they were pretty sketchy seeming at the time for the third round.
Yeah, especially, the TJ Graham ones especially.
It was like a 7th round pick projected.
Right, and then we traded up the 7th, which doesn't make him a riverboat gambler, but it does when everyone in the draft, including the Seahawks, thought we were trading up to take Russell Wilson, including myself, actually. So,
Yeah. As far as other sleepers go, I don't think it definitely wouldn't be uncommon for us to take a cornerback. The Bills are pretty good at
I mean, if Vlad was
taking
there, he's immediately
first round cornerbacks.
He's immediately
And
in
I think
consideration.
I think Sidney Jones was a guy that was in consideration before that. Again, he's off my list now.
It's got to be.
But so I think you could take the second cornerback. I wouldn't be shocked by Marlon Humphrey or shocked by some of the other guys. I'd prefer to take a guy in the second, but I still think the amount of safeties in this draft, you could very easily see 5 in the first round, depending on what you're considering Peppers.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see 4 in the top 20.
Yep.
I think Malik Hooker and Jamal Adams are both about as guaranteed as it gets in this draft. And, you signed Hyatt and Poyer. Poyer is definitely not a guarantee that he's going to be great. And you also have a guy in Hyde who has positional versatility. I don't know if he's, would play outside corner as well as, but you can move him around.
Yeah,
wherever.
a lot of people say he's a solid safety.
And I hate drafting for, well, we have this guy this year. We just signed this guy this year for a little bit of money. Things change in a year. Stephon Gilmore leaves. Now we have Kevon Seymour as our slotted in starting quarterback next year.
Yeah.
There's a great chance neither of those safeties are back, or
right.
We lose 2 running backs, or whatever could possibly happen. So I still think safety is enough of a need that within reason you could do it. And with Hooker and with Adams and with Budda Baker and with Melifonwu, some of those guys aren't a great value at 10. I'd also love to trade down because I love a bunch of guys in this draft, but I think safety is not a crazy thing to think about at that position.
Yeah, and I mean, you need 2 to tango to trade down. I mean, everyone wants to trade down, but if it's a draft where people like a lot of players, we're the ones in trouble for only having 6 picks in this regard. They're not in trouble, so they don't. If we're the ones desperate to trade down, we're going to get a bad value, and that's not necessarily what I'm after, is trading down to get another late 3rd round pick. I mean, that might be nice, but do we lose a lot by going from 10 to 19? I don't know. I mean, I would not want to be raked over the coals because we're trying too hard to move down.
I just, in my opinion, unless you were really set on getting the top wide receiver on your board, I don't think dropping from 10 to 19 is a big deal this year. And I'd be looking at the same types of players, like 3 of the safeties I mentioned, like possibly both or all 3 of the top tight ends, maybe not Howard,
right,
but probably Njoku.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram's obviously going to be there maybe in the 2nd round. I think both those guys would be useful for the team.
Yeah, John Ross there probably.
I mean, John Ross is going to be available at 19. That's if I got an extra pick for it, I might start thinking about him because I like him so much.
Right.
I think it's a draft where there's a lot of players from 8 to 25 that look exactly the same to me, and they're all very good. But by that token, you're right that makes it harder to trade down if there's going to be value.
I think it makes it harder, and the picks start falling into what you're receiving in compensation, to where it's like, I don't want to take a risk at losing my guy. You
really are counting on somebody to love a quarterback.
Right.
A lot of those things happen with tackles. There really is no elite tackle in this draft.
So that's out.
I don't think anybody likes Bowles or Ramchick or Cam Robinson more than the other guys.
I don't think enough to move an asset.
Yeah, I mean, I think the picks that are going to really have value as far as trade downs are probably going to be in the top 5, where somebody's like Marshawn Lattimore is definitely the best cornerback, or Jamal Adams is definitely the can't miss safety, or somebody who really likes one of the quarterbacks.
Right.
So we could be in a difficult position that way, but I'm pretty confident at this point. I think I'll be happy with who we draft. I think it's going to be at a position we need, and I think there's a lot of talent to go around.
Yeah, and I think I'm sold on receiver at 10. I don't even want to look at moving out. I need to put a guy on the field to help Tyrod Taylor develop.
Yeah, and I didn't mention it, but I mean, I like all 3 guys like a lot.
Yeah,
between Williams and Davis and Ross.
Yeah, and a lot of people have been souring on Williams a little bit, but watch him play.
I don't know what else to say.
Anything. He plays football. He's good at it.
It was a weird backlash too. Sometimes this happens with the scouts. They get all hissy about a guy that doesn't run the 40.
Right.
They're like, "Oh man, he really could have really could have jumped ahead of Davis if you ran the 40. We'll go watch the national title game.
Well, watch him win the game.
And then watch him go run a 4.4 at his anyways. So
right.
I mean,
I love the guy. He's another guy that I guess technically, depending on where people put him, might be able to trade down for too. So
sure.
Anyways, I'm taking, if all three of them are on the board, I don't have a problem taking whatever one I'm scouting out to be the best player there. So I need to put one there. I'm then going to go and take the best defensive back I can at my next pick at 44. And then 75, I'm not going to stray from taking BPA at that position. So that's my ideal draft. I think you can talk to people in the face about trading down and trading up for that matter, but you can't do that. I'm only going to work with the picks we have currently. So I'm not going to just predict some random trade back and try to predict the compensation for what I would receive. It's all based on what happens on draft day. If someone falls, are you desperate? Are they desperate? You can't really predict trade backs. So you can't even get into that.
No, I mean, I don't have any problem saying
people think they get way too much back too.
I'd like to trade back. I'd like to get some extra picks. We only have 6. I like a bunch of players, but I'm not going to go around predicting what I think's going to happen with that.
Right. And if the trade back happens, it can be pretty much focused on, to me, it can be based on what happens in the picks in front of you. There could be 0 opportunity to trade back at 10, or there could be lots of calls and you're getting a great value pick. So I think it's really, really, and you're getting into a what if game, and a lot of people don't like doing that, but then they go and predict a trade back. So it's weird.
And even though I like the trade back, I mean, I think a really cool situation would be if like some of these teams that need quarterbacks actually like these quarterbacks, which is perfect and possible. That's the only thing I mean, the amount of people that love Deshaun Kaiser is apparently more than I had thought.
A lot of people. I know a lot of people that cover one like
and then Trubisky, who's high in a lot of people's boards, and Watson, who I think really should be, and I think probably is.
I think around pick 8, you're going to start to see teams get antsy that 3 guys are on the board from 8 to 15.
So I think that could be a good situation for us with either we have to go trade up for a quarterback or 3 quarterbacks got traded ahead of us. There's a really good player, one of the top 2 safeties.
We got to go jump Cleveland at 12. We got to go jump Cleveland at 12. So let's go trade with Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly. But if 2 or 3 guys go ahead of 10, we're going to get a really good player pushed down to us.
Right.
So
there's a couple ways to look at it.
Either of those could happen. Any year you don't want a quarterback, you want people to go draft quarterbacks ahead of you.
Oh yeah,
it's a rule because it's usually a dumb pick. And when you see Blake Bortles go ahead of you, you just start doing a dance.
Yeah, you don't even want, and it sucks because you don't want a team to reap the benefits of trading back because a guy's on the board that the second or third quarterback that you don't even think should be a first round pick, and the team's grasping all. Not only are they trading back, they're grasping all these picks from this team, and it's an interesting situation to be in with what's going to happen. And I mean, I'm sure we're going to dissect it ad nauseum over the next month and come up with random scenarios and try to convince ourselves that all of a sudden we want to right tackle now or something. I don't know what could happen, but it seems to me that we are bringing guys into visits that might have character concerns. I've been reading a lot about that. It's kind of different than Rex Ryan, which is bringing who we liked. It's pretty much on record. We would just draft from the guys we brought into our visits. So far, our current visit seems like guys we're really trying to check up on, and or guys.
Which is absolutely what it should be.
It should be not just your buddies.
I honestly think we should be bringing in these guys that didn't get to go to the combine.
Right.
Not that I want to draft Joe Mixon.
No, but bring him in.
I mean, there's other guys too.
I mean,
you just bring him in, check out, see what he's about. This is what it's about. And if you're not going to be able to do that at the combine anymore.
Right. I don't mean it super literally, but like Chad Kelly.
I almost mean it super literally, even though I think they probably have a lot of
other teams
on him.
Yeah, they might. But still bring him in.
But I really, some people were, kind of confused by him bringing in Tim Williams and Cam Robinson. And it's like, he's not, you can't just believe an internet story or whatever. There's a lot of stuff that's not out there. And, these coaches do take a lot out of being face to face with these guys.
They take a lot out of it,
their,
especially Sean McDermott.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like that guy that just stares you in the eyes and figures out your soul.
He wants to talk football with you. And if you don't have the right answers to whatever questions he's giving you, I've heard some bizarre questions being asked on these things, including, Russell Wilson specifically remembers very weird questions going down at our local establishment Encore in downtown Buffalo. So
I wonder if he had any drinks.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think he did. I don't think he did. if I was to guess. But really, these guys, the point being, these guys remember these visits 5 years later after they're drafted.
Yeah.
And when they play that team again, for instance, like Russell Wilson's case. So they remember these things. They get poked and prodded and asked questions and asked about their moms and dads and friends and birthday parties and just the goofiest things that people have some psychological reason to ask you. So these things are really in-depth business interviews, especially workouts. So a lot of, even like, I've heard crazy things being asked even at the combine, like in our little draft rooms.
No, I mean, there's I don't even want to put them on blast because everything's just like sort of rumor at this point. But there's a bunch of players like on draft Twitter that people are talking like, yeah, we figured out this guy's not a very good guy, or he didn't have any good answers. There's guys, the guys who are secretly dropping as opposed to the guys who are secretly rising. Dalvin Cook wasn't just slow, because he ran a 4.5. His athleticism wasn't the only problem there.
Right, and a lot of things have come out about him specifically. Yeah, but I just don't believe that teams have these inside looks at these players by not doing these kind of things. Like, you need to have these draft interviews, and you're never gonna get to know these guys and millions and millions of dollars without it. So,
did Carlos Williams visit
back? Did he come on a?
I'm just wondering if he came on a visit.
Where's John Green when you need him?
Because that's
John, if you're listening, I know you have the Bills draft visitors list. So
I want to know about Carlos Williams. Tweet at me if you hear this, because
tweet at any of us.
Because somebody should have gotten fired if you were the guy who interviewed Carlos Williams.
Tweet at any of us at Cover One Bills, at Kevin Massare, or at
Jason to the.
It just as it sounds.
Yeah.
If you know if Carlos Williams visited or can point us to where we could find that information out, because I'm very interested to know as well, to see if that someone passed him. It would have been Rex Ryan.
I'm assuming so.
So his first year,
Ryan or Whaley,
I guess,
but I had to talk to him.
Yeah,
I just remember from. I mean, he had his whole rap sheet, and then from like the first interview he gave you, I was like, man, that guy really didn't convince me he wasn't crazy.
Right. No, and the stories around him get crazier as the days go on, and they still continue to go on. So, lastly, at Cover One Podcast, we wanted to bring up a couple of questions that people have been asking us, and the first one is it's brand new news today about this front office shakeup with a potential bringing in Gregory from the Panthers to run our player personnel, which is his role now in Carolina. And then from there, does that mean Doug Whaley gets demoted, fired, or what? And is it just Sean McDermott's show? And I'll give my opinion after Jason kind of chimes in on what he thinks could be going on. And any of this at this minute is obviously our opinions.
It's hard for me. I need a few more sources for me to get too deep into this. I think if people are going just off of the fact that he's not giving his press conference thing this year, I think somebody's really pulling things in this year. And I'm sure somebody said, like, all right, well, we've really been benefiting from like not releasing these free agent signings till 4 p.m.
Let's not put Doug to the wolves. Yeah.
What are we possibly benefiting right now? Just putting Doug Whaley in front of like this Bills media. I'll just say it like that.
They're after
this local Bills media. What could possibly good happen that a few days before the draft? He could give away anything we're going to do.
He could get prodded and just badgered.
He could lie about everything, and NFL teams would still figure out something from that. And then we've already had the situations where I think reporters just like to prod him now.
Yep.
They want to feel responsible for getting him out the door.
And every team has to do an NFL draft luncheon to kind of pump up the buzz. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? And I think everyone today was trying to go out and find out, well, is the GM mandatory? And I think people were finding teams that do not have their GM present at these things.
Yeah, I had seen a couple examples of it. We were
some good teams too. I can't remember one. I seriously specifically remember just reading a story. I don't know if it was.
Andy Reid.
Okay, yeah, Andy Reid
would do it instead of the GM there.
And I mean, what's the problem with that? Put on some guy that's going to give you great company lines, be straightforward, and talk to you about how he just wants to have hardworking players.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'd put anybody out there but the GM.
Yeah.
If I was the team.
The GM's amped up.
Put the coach out there, just say, like, yeah, I don't really make the decisions. It's a team thing. We have scouts for that. Very easy.
It's a process.
Yeah, I haven't been here for very long, so we're still trying to figure out what our –
instead of Doug Whaley
instead of the guy who knows everything has to lie about everything.
Right.
Like,
send up the guy that obviously is really bad at lying and that's going to just tell you he's not privy, and then everyone's going to tweet about the word privy for like 3 weeks and like make jokes about how he just went under fire. I mean, what do you want the guy to say in his press conference? Even if you like him or not, what do you want him to say?
Now, all that said, he also has had like pretty major disagreements with the last 2 coaches, and it wouldn't shock me if that's being a thing now. I just,
But how does he survive if it's his fault in those cases?
I don't know. I mean, I looked for my tweet from like 2 weeks ago where I said, man, I'm glad I'm not the team that's firing its GM right before free agency, as Washington did, like the first day of free agency. And, I just kind of wish that we would have made these decisions.
Here's my ultimate point on this and why I'm just having a hard time believing unless there's a major disagreement, which could happen. But one of my major points that I'll leave you guys with is this. As a working professional, whether you're a GM of a football team or you're inside sales representative or whatever you do, why would you, if you don't think that he is in the know of maybe feeling on the outs, if this is true, why would he continue to give his 110% with scouting reports and traveling the United States for someone that's just getting ready to fire him May 1st? So either you're telling me that he has zero idea that any of this, there's no problems. That would mean that there's no arguments, that there's no issues. He has zero to do with this, but he's going to get let go May 1st just out of the blue. But Jason LaCanforia knows this. But he's going to give it his all. He's going to go to every single pro day. He's going to break down. He's going to build the draft board, and then he's going to basically get fired. So just because we like to point to Buddy Nix, who stepped down like a day after the draft, because he was old, first of all. Second of all, is because on purpose, and he stayed as a special consultant for a couple of years, and he might still be goofing around. He might still be goofing around. You can't guarantee that. It's that Wikipedia says he's not, but you cannot tell me that he's not goofing around that he's not around New Era Field right now, because I would not be surprised. I think he was even here last year. I remember seeing him. So I wouldn't be goof trooping that he has something to do with us still and doesn't at least mentor Doug Whaley. So I'm going to leave you with that. If you're a working professional, we all are, and you have a hint that you're going to get fired, and you're starting to get a pretty strong hint, and you're arguing with people, and you're arguing with other key members of your team, but all of a sudden, you're going to still continue to work and think you're going to get another job after you're getting fired, so you're going to give it your 110% and then get fired. It just doesn't make any sense why you would continue to build this beautiful draft board to get fired about. So the team's going to trust you enough to build the draft board that they're firing you over. Right. But then they're going to fire you. So why would they even want you there at all if the reason you're getting fired is partially over your missed draft picks in your first couple of years as GM, a full-time GM? So it doesn't make any sense. Fire them.
That part hasn't changed in a while. The missed draft picks part. That didn't change last week.
Why would you all of a sudden be like,
I guess we lost EJ Manuel. Maybe that made it official.
Maybe that officially locked out 13, but there's still many contrary reports that he had nothing to do with 13. Some people say he had everything to do with it. Some people say all he was a scout, a head scout at that point as assistant GM for, Buddy Nix. Pretty much was on record wanting a big time quarterback that he thought was Cam Newton. So I don't give him positive or benefits to that year in the draft or free agency. Anything that happened, I put him on record for 14-9, and I still think all of those players are on our team. A lot of the key players are. And a lot of them are currently starters at minimum wage type of job or football wage type of players. So look up the drafts from 14 to 16 and see most of them still on our team, from Preston Browns to your John Millers to obviously your Sammy Watkins. And they're also Cyrus Kwanjo developed. They're all still on the team. So a lot of them are playing prominent roles. And, that's not even including Shaq Lawson and Reggie Ragland.
Yeah. John Miller's a good example.
John Miller developed.
Maybe don't write off a guy after 1 year.
Right. And, you have 2 players, and then, you have Adolphus Washington, who's probably in the same mode of John Miller.
Yeah, I would say he had a John Miller-ish rookie
Played a lot, though.
Yeah. But, guys get better. You put them in the
These guys are all key players on this team currently. So none of them are cut like we're used to. None of them are Terrell Troop at this point. So you can take it both ways. But I think from 14 to 16, and we'll see what happens in 17, which will be Doug Whaley's as well. that a lot of these key players are still here, and we turned over most of just the veterans, those guys that maybe didn't fit Sean McDermott's defense, and that's not incredible to know that you cut Aaron Williams because he doesn't fit in your new coach. Like, that's not on anybody. That's just not a scheme fit. So we'll leave you with that. And obviously the question of the day is, do you know if Carlos Williams visited the Bills back in 2014 or not? Draft 14 or 15? 15?
It was just 15.
Yeah,
right?
Wow, man.
He was gone. He was gone in a year.
Yeah, he played draft 2015, played 2015. We caught him preseason of 16. So
he's got to have like the most touchdowns per game in NFL history.
I think he's up there. Mike Gillislee.
Yeah, but Mike Gillislee's played 40 games, right?
I don't know.
I mean, Carlos Williams scored 9 touchdowns in 15 games.
Yeah, he's up there, definitely. And it's similar though that we just had a guy that's just as good as him sitting behind him. That's just it's really unique. And that's, go ahead and chalk that one up to Ryan Groy as well. There's a couple of RFAs that you can put on Doug Whaley's record officially too. So, I mean, you can say what you want. Those players are there. You can spin it however you want. And you can't take anything away from the disagreements with our front office. But once again, tweet at us if you know if Carlos Williams visited in 2015.
I bet this is so easy.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, but I just want to know if someone knows that offhand. I mean, you could Google it, I guess. And thanks for tuning into another edition of the Cover One podcast. And, we thank Jason Shannon for coming out and doing this with us.
Yeah, thanks. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Thanks for listening. And we look forward to getting on here soon, and look out for Cover One content. Once again, you'll hear some of us around on different podcasts. And, thanks again for coming out.